Hello, everyone, and welcome to Dreamleapers with Harriette Cole. I am so happy to be with you today. It is Fashion Week. Fashion Week is one of the most fun times for me. I think I've been attending, more than 30 years, literally. I started my career at Essence Magazine and very early on started going to Fashion Week. It has grown and expanded. My roles have changed over the years, but I still have my toe in. There's still some special events that I attend, and I pay very close attention to what's going on in the world of fashion, in part because while I love fashion, it is also true that everywhere in the world, everybody gets dressed, and how we present ourselves makes a difference. It says something about who we are, and there is an international industry to support how we say who we are. Well, there is a friend of mine, I've been knowing her since she began her business many moons ago, who is my guest today. Let me tell you about her. She's been here on Dreamleapers a lot of times, so you will remember her. She is Brandice Henderson-Daniel. She is the CEO and founder of Harlem's Fashion Row. Brandice has spent more than a decade, a lot more, helping to transform the fashion industry by championing designers of color and fostering inclusivity for real. Her leadership has led to impactful collaborations with so many brands, including Nike, LVMH, and Tiffany and Company. And her nonprofit, Icon 360, has donated more than $2 million to support HBCU fashion departments and Black designers. Brandice's work has garnered notable recognition all over, with accolades from the Wall Street Journal, Good Morning America, and Vogue magazine. So today, we're talking Fashion Week. We're talking the longevity of fashion designers. What does it take to make it? And what has Brandice been doing to help designers? Please join me in welcoming Brandice Daniel.
Oh, I'm so excited to be here. Thank you so much for that beautiful introduction.
Oh, yeah, girl, we were just saying, we go back, from the beginning of your business, but also when this technology was just being kind of played with. How can we communicate with each other using the internet? And for folks who are thinking, huh? Because it seems like we've always been doing it like that, but everything has its start. And so you decided years ago that you wanted to help designers of color, not just to show their great ideas, but to make their businesses work. What have you been doing to that end over the years that you've had Harlem's Fashion Row?
We've tried so many different things with Harlem's Fashion Row. One of the things that I realized early on is that designers really need visibility to consumers. They needed to be connected to consumers. And so we've done pop-up shops through the years. We did something called At Home with HFR, where we would go into people's homes with a designer. There's so many different initiatives we've started, but one of the ones that really stuck and felt like it was really making an impact was collaborations. And that was when we would partner a designer with a retailer to bring an actual product to life. It did a couple things. One, it satisfied consumers who were looking to figure out, like, how do I support designers of color? It gave the designers a way to make money from what they love to do, which is to design, without having to worry about how to actually produce that product and how to market it. And so collaborations have become a big piece of what we do at Harlem's Fashion Row. And I think one of the most beneficial things we do for designers.
One of the gigantic collabs you did was with LeBron James. And we were like, what? I mean, we watched these people on TV. And, I've worked with celebrities over decades, but
you work with the best celebrities.
And I'm grateful for it. But, it's one thing to celebrate someone and do a story on them or, whatever that might be. A collab, for you were able to, I believe, have 3 of your designers who are people, trying to get their ideas out there, trying to get them indoors to work with LeBron James. Please tell us how that happened and what the experience was like for these designers to have the opportunity to work with, a superstar like him and with Nike, which is a brand that we know they know how to develop the product, they know how to produce it, they know how to market it. There was so much infrastructure there to support a positive experience. How did that happen?
So LeBron was at Nike and they said like on a bouncy ball, and they were asking him how it felt to be the strongest. And he said very like nonchalantly, casually, like, I'm not the strongest. Black women are the strongest. My mom is the strongest. And there was a Black woman in the room who heard him say that. Her name is Melanie. And she said, you know what? We want to do his next shoe around that. And there was a woman who had watched HFR's journey through the years. She had seen what we had been doing. And Nike happened to have called her and said, we want to do this. Who should we tap to be a part of this collaboration? And she told them Harlem's Fashion Row. And so she called me or sent me an email and said, hey, I've got this athletic company who has this idea. I've told them about the work that you're doing at Harlem's Fashion Row. Can you get on a call with them? You have to sign an NDA. The NDA comes through. I don't know who the company is. I have no idea, but I'm definitely not thinking Nike. But the NDA comes through and it had a swoosh on it, and I almost lost my mind. Signed that NDA.
Like, because it doesn't have to be LeBron. It's the swoosh. You know what that means.
I mean, I almost lost my mind, Harriette. I could not believe it. The very next day, I was on a phone call with the general manager for the LeBron business at Nike. And it almost felt very surreal because we were in a place where we had never done a collaboration before. Mm-hmm. It was something I wanted to do. I had no idea how to make that happen. I was also coming off of a very tough season with HFR, feeling very kind of low at the time. And to be on a call that fast with the general manager of Nike was mind-blowing. And she asked me for some names of designers that I thought would be great for that project. And I gave her a deck and told her, here are the designers I think would be great for this. And they were supposed to pick one. And she said they printed out the deck, put them on a wall at Nike, looked at it with the team, and decided that they couldn't just pick one, that they wanted all three. And so we were on a plane. I had to call those designers. They couldn't believe it either. I think I still have that phone call recorded somewhere, but they couldn't believe it either. And we were on a plane to Portland, maybe a week later. And we got there, and it was such a beautiful moment because we started that meeting and there were about 20 executives in the room that were just on the LeBron business. And we started that meeting. Actually, I asked one of the guys, the OGs in the room, to play a prank on Fee Noel. That was how we started the meeting. Jay-Z, I think Jay-Z and Beyonce were performing in Portland that night. And I told him to play this prank and said, what happened? I sent her tickets. And so that was how we started the meeting. And it just started very lighthearted. And then we told our stories and we got to hear their real stories. And when we went in the room and their designers were designing with these three amazing women, Kimberly Golson, Fee Noel, and Andra Celeste New York, we all stopped talking because it was literally like there was magic happening. And I was sitting back with one of the Nike executives and I was like, I don't know what this is going to be, but it's going to be really special. You could literally feel it. And when LeBron first saw the design for the sneaker, he was most drawn to the story. The designers told him that people say that Black women can't work together. But for us, this has all been about sisterhood. This has all been about collaborating. And he said, that's the story that I want to tell. And he loved the shoe. The shoe came with
so just to be clear, there was one shoe that was designed. So the collab was multi-layered. It's a collab between Nike, LeBron, and HFR. But within HFR, there are three Black women designers who make very different clothes. Their styles couldn't be more different from each other. And they are coming together to make one shoe. Is that right?
Yeah, that's right.
It's amazing.
We had tons of meetings. I mean, we all laugh about this to this day. We would meet in my basement with popcorn and wine, going through designs and color swatches. And it really was a beautiful process. And I think people felt that when the sneaker came out because I don't think Nike had ever seen our culture be so excited about one of their sneakers. It wasn't the sneakerheads. It was, I remember there was a photo I saw when the sneaker came out of this guy, and he posted, like, I think it was his daughter, his mother, his grandmother, and they all had the sneaker.
Oh,
And those were the types of moments that were happening with that shoe. It really was special that Nike had tapped these, and LeBron had tapped these three female designers for the first time, by the way. That had never happened for a LeBron sneaker to design that, his 16th shoe.
and I think, especially because a lot of people who tune into Dreamleapers are looking to make their dreams manifest. And there are a few things that I'd like to unpack in the story that you just shared. First of all, you have to be ready for these opportunities. And while you told us this was a low moment in your business, and anybody who's in business knows it goes up and down. I mean, I don't care who you are. You could be the biggest business in the world. It goes up and down. You were at a low moment, but you were also ready. So the low moment, for anybody out there who might be in a low moment now, you don't broadcast the low moment. You have it, you experience it, you hunker down, but you remain ready. When you're ready, you talked about making a deck. You know how to make a deck. You actually teach people how to make decks and get themselves ready for whatever the opportunity is. So this is something that I've noticed about you, Brandice, from the beginning. The preparedness and the professionalism that you bring to whatever you do. And I think that a lot of people don't pay enough attention to that. So can you talk about what it means to be ready, and what does it take to be ready for the opportunities that come your way?
Sometimes you think that you're working on something and that you wasting your time. For years, I had been putting together sponsorship proposals and hearing crickets for years. But when that opportunity came with Nike, I realized that all of those years of me putting together decks, even though people weren't buying into them, prepared me for that moment. And I really think it's a matter of just it's consistency. Consistency is everything, and you have to be so committed to the process and allow whatever the result is. You don't control that, right? The only thing we can control is the process. And so what I've learned is, like, be committed to the process. So even when I'm planning something, we are wholly committed to the process of planning that. When I'm putting something out, we're committed to the process because you can't control the results. And that's hard because we all want to see results.
Mhm.
Um, and I think if you can put as much energy into the process of creating something, more energy into that than thinking about the result that you're going to get, you end up getting an amazing result. And I feel like that a lot of that came from my dad. My dad owned several businesses when I grew up. And I saw, like, he made us hustle too. We were we were child labor. He would prepare flyers and we would fold them and we would put them out on Saturdays. And whatever happened, happened, right? If he got business from it, he did, but it never impacted the process for him. Like,
Mhm.
he put so much energy into making sure that he had done all he could to get the results he wanted to get. And I really think I learned that piece of that work ethic from watching him, not just watching him, but from being a part of it and being a part of folding those flyers and going out on Saturdays. And not caring so much about the accolades. I have, mentees, and they want to be recognized and invited into certain rooms, and I'm always saying that will happen when it's time, but don't let that be your focus. When that's your focus, you're then distracted by that and you can't focus on what's actually in front of you.
That is such an important statement. And we live in a culture where people want the likes, people want
Yeah.
the acknowledgement, people crave it. I mean, in fact, there's studies saying how unhealthy that is for especially our young people. When if you don't get it, then what does that mean? Let me remind folks, this is Dream Leapers with Harriette Cole. We are talking with Brandice Daniel. She is the CEO and founder of Harlem's Fashion Row. It is Fashion Week, and we are celebrating Fashion Week at this moment. Brandice, this notion of accolades versus work, I think, is worth
Mhm.
exploring, because we know that there are so many people who just believe, because of this social media culture that we live in, that if you do not have X number of checks, likes, comments, then you're a failure.
Mm.
While we also need to have those likes and acknowledgments in order sometimes to get business, to prove that you have an audience. I mean, there's the push and pull of that. But what do you tell to designers who are looking to build their businesses, and perhaps they're getting distracted by that? How can you engage social media in a healthy way rather than being overcome by it?
I always say to designers, focus on finding your tribe. If
Mm.
it's 5 people who love what you do, serve those 5 people incredibly well and tell the story on your social media of those 5 people and your relationship with those 5 people in the process of serving those 5 people. Because then you're basically at that point attracting the right people to you, right? Because everybody's not our crowd. They're just not. And I think it's more important having the right people liking your comment, liking your photos, and liking your videos, and um, seeing what it is that you do, because then you start to attract more of those people, which then means that you're going to get more business. One of the things that I try to do is actually come off social media at times,
Mm.
because you can get so boggled down with looking at other people's feeds and seeing what they're doing and overthinking what you're going to post and all of that. And you need weeks when you're not distracted and you really go inward and um, just connect with yourself, so that when you come back on social media, you're posting things that are important to you, not things that you think people are going to like.
That is so important. I do a weekly inspirational broadcast called Dreamleapers Inspiration. And this past week, talked about, the focus was be your best.
Mhm.
And the point was, be your best, not your best in comparison to anyone,
Yep.
except for if you want to compare yourself to yourself. Well, how did I do before? Am I doing better? What do I need to work on? But so many people attempt to be like someone else.
Hmm.
And if I just get to, if I could be just like Brandice, then if I could be just like, and that is so dangerous,
Mm.
because being our authentic selves and really cultivating that is what makes us great. But
It's
it's
so
hard
true.
to recognize.
It's so true. And I just listened to a podcast that Fawn Weaver was on, the founder of Uncle Nearest, and her perspective was so different. And it was so refreshing, right? Because she didn't sound like anybody I had ever heard. And but you can tell she spent a lot of time with herself, connecting with herself. And the more that we realize what we want, and more that we also surrender, because I'm a big proponent of surrendering, um we then get to share like what's really on our heart with the world and with the people. And again, you're attracting then your people to your social media, and you're inspiring other people. But when we're trying to be like someone else, it's frustrating for us more than anything, right? It's
It
like
doesn't work.
something doesn't feel
People
right to
need to
me.
understand that it doesn't work. And if
It
you
doesn't
really,
work.
hopefully people are hearing this, it doesn't work.
It doesn't work.
And then you spend all this time and you're like, oh my goodness, it didn't work. Well, it doesn't work. So it's better to spend time focused on you and recognize that all of us have greatness within. And if we cultivate that, then our world is better, and everybody who's part of our world is better, because they see us being authentically us. So let's talk about what's happening. Fashion Week for HFR. You all are busy. What what are all the things that HFR is involved in for this Fashion Week?
Well, we just did a show, which you were at, and
Yeah.
this is September 7th, right? So we partnered with Hugo Boss and was able to show their collaboration with Naomi Campbell. We honored Naomi Campbell that night, which was absolutely incredible. Also honored Shiona Tarini, a stylist I've admired for so long. And Samira Nasir, who is the editor-in-chief of Harper's Bazaar. And we also honored Tiana Taylor with our Virgil Abloh Award. And so that night was incredible. We got to show the collections of three amazing designers. Nicole Benefield, I'm so obsessed. I actually almost wore her today, but I feel like I've worn that thing so many times. And Aaron Potts, who's been in the industry for so long and really, I mean, he deserves everything.
He's been in it so long, and yet he's new to some people, which is why it's so wonderful for you to give him this platform. Sometimes veteran designers are newcomers to a particular audience. So I'm so glad you did that.
Absolutely. And then we introduced a new designer, Latouche, which I was introduced to him last year, love his work, and so excited that people got to see his work. And then, but the night was amazing. We did an after party that night in collaboration with the New York Giants and Hugo Boss. And then we have a collaboration that is coming up that I'm so excited about. We've been working on this for 2 years. So It's been a long time in the making.
Patience, yep.
Long time in the making. And that collaboration is with Nordstrom's private label brand. And it's with the designer Harbison, who is just insanely talented, with the House of Amma, which is a mother-daughter duo. They've been designing for years. Really beautiful collection. And with Megan Renee, who we've worked with multiple times as well. So just beautiful collection. I'm excited for everyone to see it. The photos are stunning. I cannot wait till all of those come out. But it's great.
Brandice, how does it work with this collab with Nordstrom? Is it for one season? How does that roll out?
So right now we're rolling it out this season, the fall season. We're hoping to work on something else in the future, but it really depends on how we all show up and support this collection, right? But I will say every collab that we've done have always over-indexed. It's always done incredibly well. People are looking to support designers of color, looking to buy them. And so this one, I think, is just going to be really special. We're doing an event in New York, and then we're also going to be in Atlanta for the first time.
Fantastic. Well, that's really important, too, because the world does not just revolve around New York, even though we sometimes think it does. But especially for designers of color, Atlanta is the pulse point.
Yes.
For that community. So I think that's really exciting. Let's go back to your event that happened a few days ago. You have always made a fashion event that is, I'm going to go backwards. When I was growing up in Baltimore, when I started as a model when I was 13 years old, the first shows were either in church, there were special church events, or they were the social clubs, or, the women's organizations like that. And they were fantastical experiences. It was not like what we have at New York Fashion Week, where everybody's, very calm and collected and, all of that. It's not at all. It was fabulosity. People were moving and grooving and the music was loud. From my perspective, you have taken a bit of that cultural experience, like from the Black community and the social experience, and matched it with a bit of the more formal New York Fashion Week experience to create something very different. Can you talk about what that experience is and why you made something in New York City that is really different from the classic New York Fashion Week show?
We have so much soul. I love our culture so much. And so, even last year we celebrated the 50th anniversary of hip hop, and we had Dougie Fresh come out at the very end of the show. And he had everybody swag surfing in the whole building. And I can't tell you, some of our white executives that work for some of the brands, they were I mean, they did not call it swag surf. They called it swig and this. And they were trying to figure out what it was. But I love being able to figure out how do we infuse our culture into this. Like HFR is not trying to be, we're not trying to be anything other than us, right? We're not trying to fit into a mold. We're not trying to, be another New York Fashion Week event. We want our culture to feel seen and celebrated. And that is so important. And, I will say, like, us deciding to honor people along with showing the collections just also made sense for us, especially in the beginning when we were showing like lesser known designers.
Right.
We knew that they might not show up for those designers, but they would show up for certain people being honored, right?
Yeah.
And so it's being able to do both of those things at once, to be able to say to a Samira Nazir who has, done something that is absolutely incredible, that's never been done before, to say, we see you, we celebrate you. And you can feel that in the room. Like, people always tell me, we honored Kelly Rowland last year, and she said, Brandice, that energy in the room, I don't know if I felt that before. I said, because what you felt was people, like, their genuine love and appreciation. That's what you felt. And I just think people really feel like when they come to HFR, they don't have to bring in their fashion selves, right? There's a fashion self that a lot of people have.
They bring their fashion selves in now.
They do bring their fashion selves. They bring all their style, but they bring their authentic selves. And they can actually come in that door and relax because it's for you. So that's what I think people feel.
I love that. I'm thinking about what happened. Well, let me back up. I just talked to a woman today who I was supposed to see and cannot see her because she has COVID. COVID is still here. And they said it was going to still be here. It is still here. But I'm going back to when it was the pandemic. And the world came to a screeching halt. Certainly the fashion world did, because who's buying clothes if you're not going anywhere? You ended up having a pivot, an expansion of your business to support more people as a result of the pandemic. And you started Icon 360, your charity, and just you've been able to expand in ways that who imagined? So can you tell us, this crisis that occurred created an opportunity for you to help more people? Tell us about that.
It did. I knew I would start a nonprofit in this decade. I had written that down. I had planned that, but I thought it'd be much further along. And 2020 hit, pandemic hit. I was calling to check on designers that I know. And they were telling me, Brandice, I went from making $10,000 a month to making nothing. I don't know if I'm gonna be able to keep my doors open. You heard the concern in their voice. And I'm like, this is the time. Really, I felt like I heard from God that this is the time to start this. And so I started planning, and I was like, I don't know what this is going to look like, but I'm going to do a virtual event. I'm going to ask everybody I know to be a part of this. And we're going to raise as much money as we can for designers. And so we did that event. I remember that it was supposed to happen. It was 2 days after George Floyd was murdered that the event was supposed to air. I debated on even airing it because it just felt so trivial in the face of what the country was facing. I mean, that was probably one of the hardest decisions I've had to make along this journey. And we aired it. 1,000 people actually bought tickets to that event. So we were able to raise, I think the tickets were like $20-something. We raised like $20,000 and gave that away to the designers. And then we got $1 million donation shortly after from the CFDA and Vogue. And that allowed us to be able to really like support 27 designers, give out awards as big as $100,000 to these designers. And then I said, I really want to support HBCU fashion departments as well. And started, I think one of the things we don't do enough is like share our big vision and dreams with people.
That's
This is
true.
Dream Leapers, right? And we
Yeah.
like to keep our dreams to ourselves because I don't know, we are afraid to share them. We don't want anybody to steal the idea. We like
Right.
all these things, but when you share your dreams with people, they a lot of times want to be a part of it or figure out, how do I help you make that dream come true?
It's
And
true.
that's what happened with Gap. So I shared the dream. We've been able to support designers of color. I really want to support HBCU fashion departments. I had been to one of the best HBCUs in the world, and they had two working sewing machines.
Oh my
And
goodness. Let me pause for 1 second to remind folks, this is Dreamleapers with Harriette Cole. We are talking to Brandice Daniel from HFR. And what we're talking about is very serious now. So I want everybody to focus. This is about our youth. This is about the next generation, what we're talking about now. So Brandice, just to frame it just a little bit more, I have to go back. You just mentioned something like, oh, and then we got $1 million from CFDA. Sorry, we can't gloss over that. You went from people paying $20 for a ticket, you got 1,000 people to sign up, to getting the CFDA, the Council of Fashion Designers of America, to donate $1 million. It doesn't, I don't need the long story, but a little bit more than just, can you just tell, how did that happen? Why did that happen?
it happened because we had done that event. That and I would say obedience. It was moving forward on something even when we didn't know exactly how to do it. But that virtual event attracted the attention of the CFDA. I had no idea that that was going to happen. And doing that event, putting it out there, promoting it in a big way, attracted the attention of CFDA. Stephen Cole, who I had been in touch with for years, called me actually out the blue and said, how are you doing? What's going on? How's your daughter doing? And we talked about what was going on in the world at that time. And he said, I saw that you started a nonprofit. I saw that the event looked incredible. We have money here that we have left over from they had, I think it was the Vogue Fashion Fund. They decided not to do that year, but to transition those funds in a different way. And he said, we want to donate part of it to Icon 360. He said, we met, I think it was him and I think it was Tom Ford at the time and Anna Wintour, and they wanted to make that donation. And so,
You, just for context, again, for people who are listening, you have done the work. You have a track record of doing what you say you're going to do. We talk about branding all the time, that you equal your brand. You don't say something and do something else. This is important for people to hear because nobody's going to give you $1 million unless you have proven to be trustworthy and that you live by your brand.
yep.
And also you weren't waiting for somebody to do something, taking the action to help designers when you knew that they were desperately in need of help. You just said $20, whatever we can get. And I just want people to really hear this, because often we think, well, if only, when I get here, when I get to this place where I have more, then I can do more. If only somebody would pay attention to me. That's not what you did. You took action, and whatever was going to be the yield was going to be okay. And look at what the yield became. Oh my goodness,
And
right?
and you know what's interesting about that as well is that I gave that event to 3 or 4 sponsors. I told them, I'm not charging you anything for this. I'm gonna put your name on it as if you have sponsored this, because I want you to see how successful this is going to be. And hopefully you'll then pivot with us to make all the other events, live events we had planned, virtual. And so Stephen Cole also mentioned that. I see you've got these brands that are supporting you. And I had no idea that those dots would connect in that way. No idea. But that was a game changer for so many designers. And, it's interesting because Icon 360, I always say, Bevy Smith always talk about, I'm the little engine that could. Icon
Yeah.
360 is the little engine that could, because it continues to shock and surprise me at what is happening with that nonprofit. So now
It's
we're
one
working on actually an endowment. The goal is to build out like a $15 million endowment for it.
perfect. So and also everybody, you have to keep expanding your dream. If your dream is small, it's always going to be small. If you keep believing, you deserve to be able to expand your dream, especially if your dream is going to help other people. I think the way I was brought up, we live in service of each other, in service of good intentions. And when you do that, then the abundance of the universe comes. If it's all about you, not so
Yeah.
much. But so let's go to you were talking about HBCUs. I went to Howard University, and even though Howard, people think has all this money, not comparatively, right? And many of our schools, HBCUs that are smaller, that are not as well recognized, really have limited resources. And yet, if there are students who want to learn, they want to learn about fashion, they want to learn about the business, and they'd like to learn at our schools, as you mentioned, if there are only two sewing machines, how are you going to share? If there's, if there's old equipment and we're living in the age of technology, what are you going to do? Your vision to support HBCUs in their fashion departments is so important. And I went to an event that you had a few months ago where I don't remember the woman's name, but there was someone who runs an HBCU fashion program, and she was just talking about how it's been a game changer for them. So tell us more about that part of your program and the impact that it's had already.
Yeah, I think we get a chance to look at things, get frustrated, get upset about it, but we get a chance to do something about it.
Yeah.
And that was how I felt when I walked into HBCU department. So we have a few different programs. We partner HBCU fashion departments up with brands. And so those brands are actually mentoring those students. So we have one with Tiffany and Company in North Carolina, A&T. We had a partnership with Levi's and Clark for many years. We have Tapestry. I think it's Coach right now is the partner for Bowie State. And then we have a partnership between American Eagle and North Carolina Central. And so we partner these brands up with the department so that they can really get to know these students, and the students in the faculty can really get to know the brand. So we've done that. We used to have a HBCU fashion professor retreat that we launched last year in partnership with Pencil. So we do that during Juneteenth. All these HBCU professors that this year we were able to pay a lot of their travel through a grant with Target. And so they come up and we give them 3 days where we just give them all the information that they need. Like we put executives from LVMH, Saks Fifth Avenue, Macy's, all types of different organizations in front of them so that they can understand kind of this is what these corporations are looking for. And then we donate money as well to the department. So it's been, I graduated from FIT, Fashion Institute of Technology, and I know how much that school has. And when I look at HBCU fashion departments, I'm like, we've got a long way to go to get them to that point. But I believe we can do it. It's just going to take a lot of people. It's going to take the whole village to make that happen, for sure.
Well, I love the model and the fact that you talk about it, because as you say, if you talk about it, you create the opportunity to bring more resources in, but also I think it shows the way that we can fortify our HBCUs is to do something.
Yes.
Do something. And Michelle Obama talked about do something. Doing something is pivotal, not just talking about it. And so very often we talk, we complain. This is what so and so is not doing. This, can you believe? And so I want to talk in the few minutes we have left about mindset, because I do think it's important to keep a positive mindset, to fortify a positive mindset. It's not always easy to do because as you just described, you went to FIT and then here's what's happening at these programs. What you are doing with a positive mindset is looking to change it. How can we keep a positive mindset, especially for those who want to be in this industry, when it seems like the doorway is not open so wide for people of color who want to be in it? How do we stay positive, and how do we believe that it's possible?
I think you stay ridiculously optimistic.
Mm.
I I assume that people want to help. That's my posture. And so you usually get what you expect. And so I go into doors. I assume that people want to help. I assume that people are HFR supporters. I assume that people love the work that we do. I don't, maybe they do, maybe they don't, but I have decided to make the assumption that we have so much support and so much excitement for this work, and that people will absolutely want to support it and open doors. And it's also kind of understanding that it's so much bigger than you. Like this, none of this work is ever about me. And so I'm not really going in thinking about my agenda. I'm thinking about like the impact that this is going to have.
Mhm.
And I also understand that what's for me is for me, and what's not for me is not for me. And so if the door is closed, if the answer is no, it's okay. It probably just means that either that person wasn't for me, the opportunity wasn't for me, or maybe it's just a not now. And
No.
that has helped.
So Brandice, for those people who believe that racism exists in this industry, I'm just going to name it
Yeah,
for what it is. And I mean, I think it does exist in this
it
industry.
does.
Sometimes we get caught up with that. Like, well, this, I didn't get this opportunity because I'm Black. I didn't get this opportunity because I'm a woman, because the fashion industry is also not so female centric, which is interesting and odd, but true. Um, how do we get past what can be crippling? This
Mm.
belief that because I am a person of color, the door is not going to open for me.
It really comes from what you tell yourself. The story that you tell yourself is so important. Like, it is so important. I do something called faith casting a
Mm.
lot. And so I will call, there's a friend of mine that I do it with all the time. Her name is Chris Keys, an artist. But I will call her and we will just, I'll go out 3 months and tell her everything that's happened as if it's already happened.
Mm.
And we're talking about this deal that's happened and that deal that's happened and how these things were resolved and how these doors have opened. And I do that with our team as well. So sometimes on our Monday meeting, I'll say, okay, guys, let's start our meeting faith casting. And I'll start it out and with all the emotion and with all, like, you would think that all of this stuff has actually happened because I'm so excited about it. And I asked them to come with that same enthusiasm and really claiming things that have not yet manifested as if they already are. And that has been a game changer, I think, for both me and my team. Last year was a really hard year for me, really difficult. And faith casting and having those moments with a friend, and when things looked like they were all falling apart for me last year, I mean, it was honestly one of the roughest years I've ever had in business. um Faith casting kept me hopeful. And so you have to figure out, like, it is your job to decide, how do you stay hopeful, because without hope, without faith, without dreams, every door is going to be closed. People can feel that energy coming from a mile away, right? So what you actually believe, the other people can feel that. And so you're basically kind of writing your story based on how you walk through the door and what your mindset is. So those are the things that work for me. I
And
don't go.
Brandis, let me jump in for a second, because I think a lot of people struggle with, okay, I'm going to have this positive outlook, but as you just described, it was a really hard year. How do you deal with the reality of, hey, maybe I can't pay my bills. whatever the struggles are, things are not how I forecasted it is not what's happening. I'm not, all of that uncertainty and reality that what am I going to do next, how it is affecting me emotionally and keeping the faith. How do you reconcile those things and stay honest with yourself in the process?
Yeah, the reality is the reality. I mean, last year, every problem that you could think of, I had health,
Mhm.
business, financial, like all the I had real, and my problem, the amount of challenges I had was probably a lot more than most people. I mean, I'm talking about hundreds of thousands of dollars in
Right.
problems that I was dealing with. And um but that doesn't looking at the problem, you having that positive mindset, faith casting, believing that this was going to work out, and not just believing it, but saying it, and
Mhm.
saying that things that had not happened or had not been resolved, saying them as if they were already done,
I
helped
see.
me to come up with solutions to solve them. But when you're in the gap, there's a book that I love. It's called The Gain in the Gap. It's by Benjamin Hardy. When you're in the gap, it's so hard to even come up with solutions, to even think of ways that you can actually resolve these challenges. So you have to get to a place where you believe that this is done, that it's over, that this challenge is done, that you've resolved it, that God has given you what you needed to resolve it. You have to get to that place in order to come to a resolution. Like
Mhm.
part of what helped me resolve some things from last year was I was speaking it. And so the more I was speaking that these things have been resolved, I was like, oh, I could do this. Oh, I could do that. Like it was
Right.
helping me to come up with solutions. But when you're in that place where the reality is that everything is looking like it's falling apart and you don't know how you're going to pay your rent next month, and you're depressed about it, and you keep repeating, oh my goodness, this keeps happening to me, why this keeps happening to me, I'm just having so many. If you keep repeating all your struggles and your problems, it's
You'll have more.
difficult for you to get out of that. Like survival is getting yourself to a positive mindset and believing that you've gotten past this thing and that things are good and that they're great. It is, for me, I don't see that as an option. That is my lifeline. Like I HFR would not exist if I would have stayed in that place, because we have had some very hard times. I mean, close to the cuff hard times where I might have needed $100,000 in a week, hard times. And if you stay in that emotional place of like dread and fear, like
Then it
you
doesn't
will
come.
never get out of that place. So for
Well, I
me, it's
am
not
so glad that you didn't stay there because you are
like
here and we have to go now, but please tell people how they can learn more about HFR. Where do they go?
our Instagram at Harlem's Fashion Row. Check that out. Go to our website, harlemsfashionrow.com, and you should be able to find out everything you need in those two places.
Well, congratulations on everything, Brandice. It's always just a privilege to talk to you. You bring joy to us, and that's all that I'm looking for. Congratulations on this very
Thank you.
successful fashion week, and look forward to talking to you again soon.
Thank you so much. I'm excited to be on Dreamleapers again.
Yay. And thank all of you for tuning in. I hope you feel as inspired as I do. Check out Harlem's Fashion Row. Until next time, have a great day and make it count.